Welcome to this first of many podcasts dedicated to inclusive diving. The Inclusive Diving YouTube channel has been set up by Dr. Mark Downs, a diving physician in the UK with substantial experience in assessing people with impairments and disabilities who wish to learn to scuba dive. This first podcast will look at the topic of inclusive diving, so let's get started.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going underwater.
Ooh, exciting.
We're diving into the world of accessible scuba diving.
Right.
You sent over some absolutely incredible research on organizations making this a reality
Yeah, fantastic.
for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
So we've got Diveability, Dive Heart,
Okay.
the Scuba Trust, and the Handicapped Scuba Association,
Wonderful.
all
Yeah.
doing really interesting things.
It is a really interesting area. And,
Yeah.
one of the things that really struck me as I was going through this research was,
Yeah.
the technology and the training that goes into making this happen.
Mhm.
Because adaptive scuba diving isn't,
Right.
you don't just strap on a tank and jump in.
Right.
There's specialized equipment, there's modified techniques,
Mm-hmm.
and a real deep understanding of individual needs.
Yeah, that's a great point. So before we even dive into the specifics of each of these organizations, maybe we could sort of unpack the nuts and bolts of what
Yeah.
adaptive scuba training even looks like, what
Okay.
makes it different.
Yeah. Well, let's start with the equipment. Divers with visual impairments
Okay.
might rely on tactile signals
Oh, interesting.
from their dive buddies
Okay.
or underwater communication devices.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I imagine the training must be pretty different too,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
Like tailored for every individual.
Yeah. Adaptive scuba instructors, they go through this
Yeah,
really rigorous training to learn how to assess eiders and needs,
right.
adapt the teaching methods,
Mm-hmm.
and address specific safety concerns.
Yeah.
So, for instance, someone with spinal cord injuries
Okay.
might need to learn modified entry and exit techniques,
Makes sense.
or how to control buoyancy using their upper body strength.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you're really customizing an experience to empower each diver
precisely. Yeah.
to be safe and explore the world.
Yeah. And, going back to the organizations you mentioned,
Yeah.
one thing that really struck me is how each of them kind of approaches adaptive scuba diving
Okay.
with a slightly different focus.
Interesting.
But they all share that common goal
Right.
of inclusivity.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit.
Okay.
And since you mentioned individual needs,
Yeah.
Diveability seems like a perfect place to start.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some powerful personal stories on their website,
Yeah, definitely.
like Harvey's and Joe's.
Right.
Both of these guys
Yeah.
faced very different challenges,
Yeah.
but found a sense of freedom
Right.
through diving.
Yeah. What's so compelling about Harvey's story
Yeah.
is that he has Down syndrome.
Okay.
And, often people with Down syndrome, they have low muscle tone and joint laxity.
Right.
But the weightlessness of the water, the neutral buoyancy, it actually provides support and allows for greater freedom of movement.
Wow.
And not only that,
Yeah.
but he became a certified diver
Oh, wow.
and can now share his passion with his family.
That's incredible. What a great
It is.
story of really,
Yeah.
breaking down those barriers.
Yeah.
And then there's Joe, who has Asperger's syndrome and cerebral palsy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how did scuba diving specifically help him?
Well, individuals with Asperger's,
Yeah.
they often thrive on structure and routine.
Okay.
And scuba diving, with its clear procedures and safety protocols, can provide
Right.
a sense of order and predictability.
Right.
And for Joe, who also has cerebral palsy, which affects muscle control and coordination,
Right.
the water provides a supportive environment
Okay.
that reduces the impact of gravity.
So it's really not just a
Yeah.
physical experience, but a psychological
Right.
one as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of community diveability, they go beyond just offering the training courses.
Okay.
They do pool sessions, dive trips,
Right.
and even fundraising events.
Oh, wow.
Like they've got this fire walk coming up on March 15th
Oh, cool.
to purchase a new hoist.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're really committed to making this happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, based on what you said
Yeah.
about each organization having a
Right.
different focus,
Yeah.
where does Dive Heart fit in?
So Dive Heart takes kind of a broader approach,
Okay.
focusing on adaptive scuba training and trips.
Okay.
Not just for people with disabilities, but also for veterans and children.
Okay.
What really stood out to me was their global reach.
Wow.
They've worked with individuals from all over the world.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Really speaks volumes about their dedication.
Yeah, they've facilitated over 629 donations.
Wow.
They've got 532 volunteers
That's amazing.
and 341 adaptive certifications.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then there's their Dive Heart Angel program.
Uh-huh.
What is that?
So this is a wonderful program.
Yeah.
Essentially, people can donate specifically to support a diver's training,
Okay.
which can be quite costly,
Right.
especially when you factor in the equipment and the travel.
Right. Absolutely. What a beautiful testament to the power of community. So we've talked about Diveability's personalized approach, Dive Heart's global reach.
Right.
What's next?
Well, we've got two more organizations you mentioned,
Yeah.
the Scuba Trust and the Handicapped Scuba Association.
Right.
Each brings its own unique contribution
Okay.
to the world of accessible diving. And I think they might offer some interesting points of comparison
Okay.
with Diveability and Dive Heart.
Art.
The Scuba Trust, like Diveability, highlights personal stories,
Yeah.
but their emphasis seems to be on the sense of freedom and community.
You know, that's a point that really stood out to me, too.
Yeah.
Reading the testimonials, you can almost feel the weight
Yeah.
left off their shoulders
Yeah.
when they describe their experiences.
It is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
Imagine spending most of your life navigating a world designed for able-bodied individuals, and you're constantly encountering barriers.
Right.
Then suddenly,
Yeah.
you're immersed in an environment
Yeah.
where your wheelchair becomes irrelevant.
Wow.
Movement is effortless.
Yeah.
And you're surrounded by people who see you for your abilities,
Right.
not your limitations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like a whole new dimension.
It is.
Of freedom.
Yeah.
And it seems like
Yeah.
that freedom extends beyond.
So it's a physical, right?
Precisely.
There's an emotional,
Yeah.
psychological impact.
Yeah, for someone who might face daily challenges related to their mobility,
Right.
that feeling of weightlessness gliding through the water
Right.
can be incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
It challenges their own perceptions
Yeah.
of what they're capable of
Right.
and allows them to redefine their relationship with their body.
It's like a reset button
It is, yeah.
for the mind and body.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing this recurring theme here,
Yeah.
the power of community. All of these organizations seem to cultivate that.
Absolutely. Think about that shared experience of learning to dive, overcoming challenges together,
Right.
celebrating each other's successes.
Exactly.
It creates bonds
Yeah,
that extend beyond the water.
absolutely.
A support system that can be invaluable
Yeah.
for anyone, but especially for
Right.
these individuals.
So it's not just about teaching people to dive.
Right. It's about fostering a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
a place where differences are celebrated
Yeah.
and everyone feels like they're part of something bigger.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the Handicapped Scuba Association,
Okay.
the HSA.
Yeah.
What's remarkable about them is their long and impactful history.
Yes.
They didn't just simply emerge as an organization.
Right.
They evolved from a research program
Wow.
at the University of California, Irvine,
That's amazing.
back in 1975.
Yeah, the fact that they started as research
Yeah.
speaks volumes
Yeah.
about their dedication to safety and accessibility. And speaking of pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
their founder,
Right.
Jim Gattaker,
Yeah.
what an inspiring story.
Jim's story is truly remarkable.
Yeah.
He overcame paralysis to become a scuba instructor.
Wow.
Imagine the resilience, the determination,
Yeah.
the passion that drove him
Yeah.
to not only embrace diving, but to make it his mission
Right.
to share that with others.
Absolutely. His story just embodies the spirit of the HSA.
It does.
And it's not just about individual stories.
Right.
Their impact is global.
It is, yeah.
They have training centers and resources all over the world.
Their approach seems very comprehensive.
Yeah.
They don't just train divers.
Right.
They work to make the entire diving infrastructure more accessible.
Right.
Things like accessible boats, aquariums, and resorts.
It's like they're creating a whole ecosystem of inclusivity.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing there's a bigger picture here. This isn't just about scuba diving. It's about a societal shift
Yeah.
towards inclusivity
You're absolutely right.
in adventure sports, recreational activities.
There's a growing recognition that everyone deserves the opportunity to experience the thrill of adventure,
Yeah.
the joy of exploration,
Right.
the connection with nature.
And organizations like these are leading the way.
They are.
So we've explored 4 incredible organizations,
Yeah.
each with its own approach and focus, but all united by a common goal
Right.
of making scuba diving accessible.
Yeah.
We've delved into personal stories, technical adaptations,
Yeah.
and the profound impact this
Wow.
experience has.
And as we approach the end of our deep dive today,
Yeah.
I'd like to bring it back to you, the listener.
Okay.
What resonates with you the most
Yeah.
about what we've discussed?
Right.
What questions or thoughts come to mind
Yeah.
as you consider
Yeah.
the possibilities of accessible scuba diving?
As we've been I keep coming back to this idea of weightlessness,
Yeah.
and how transformative that experience must be,
Right.
especially for someone who faces physical limitations on land.
Yeah, it's a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
We associate water with resistance,
Right,
the
right.
feeling of being weighed down.
Right.
But for individuals with mobility impairments,
Yeah.
water can actually provide a sense of liberation,
Yeah.
a feeling of lightness and freedom that they may never have experienced before.
That's such a good point, and I think it speaks to the power of perspective.
Yeah,
We often take our able-bodied experiences for granted.
right.
But for someone who struggles with mobility,
yeah.
the simple act of moving effortlessly through water must be incredibly profound.
Imagine the feeling of gliding through a coral reef,
Oh, wow.
surrounded by vibrant colors and marine life,
Right.
without the constraints of gravity or the need for assistive devices.
Yeah.
It's a truly immersive experience
Yeah.
that transcends physical limitations
Absolutely.
and allows individuals to connect with nature on a whole new level.
And it's not just the physical sensation either, right?
Right.
There's a psychological component.
Absolutely.
The feeling of accomplishment,
Yeah.
the boost in confidence.
Sense of empowerment.
That comes from mastering a new skill and pushing past perceived limitations.
Yeah, and I think it's important to acknowledge
Yeah.
that accessible scuba diving
Right.
isn't about erasing or minimizing disabilities.
Right.
It's about recognizing that everyone has different abilities.
Yeah.
And finding ways to adapt and accommodate those differences
Yeah.
so that everyone can experience the joy and wonder.
Of the underwater world.
Yeah.
It's about inclusivity, not just accessibility.
Right.
It's about creating a space
Yeah.
where everyone feels welcome and respected.
Precisely. And I think that's
Yeah.
what makes this topic so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a testament to human ingenuity, compassion,
Yeah.
and the unwavering belief in the power of possibility.
It's like a ripple effect.
Yeah.
These organizations are not only changing the lives of individuals with disabilities, but they're also challenging societal norms and expanding our understanding of what it means to be human.
And hopefully they're inspiring others
Yeah.
to think about how they can create more inclusive and accessible environments in
Exactly.
their own communities.
Well, I'm personally inspired.
Yeah,
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
it has been.
We've learned so much
Yeah.
about diveability, dive heart,
The Scuba Trust
the Scuba Trust,
and the Handicapped Scuba Association.
and the Handicapped Scuba Association.
And I hope our listener,
Yeah.
who clearly has a deep interest in this topic,
Right.
based on the research they provided, has gained some valuable insights.
Yeah.
And perhaps even a renewed sense of wonder
Definitely.
about the world around them.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
All right.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
here's a final thought for you, our listener.
Okay.
If you could experience the freedom and weightlessness of scuba diving, what would be the most exhilarating
Right.
or awe-inspiring thing
Yeah.
you would want to see or do beneath the waves?
Until next time,
Yeah.
keep exploring.
Keep diving deep.
Keep challenging boundaries.
Absolutely.
And keep diving deep
Yeah.
into that vast ocean of knowledge and possibility.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed it and now have a better understanding of what inclusive diving is all about. The next podcast will be a more in-depth look at Diveability, a UK charity dedicated to helping those with disabilities and impairments to begin their underwater adventures.